I look older than Okutepa.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Seated with me are two senior advocates of Nigeria, Jibrin Okutepa and Dr. Paul Ananaba. You're very welcome to the program, sirs.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
So we know, we've heard quite a bit from our first two panelists concerning this issue of this list of alleged looters released by the ruling All Progressives Congress, of course the federal government, but of course the ruling APC in the government. Can you give us your thoughts, Senior Advocate, about the list and whether you think or do not think it's appropriate?
Well, first of all, let me confess that I'm not a politician. I belong to neither APC nor PDP or any of the existing political parties. Secondly, I also want to sound a note of warning that politicians must avoid playing partisan politics with the common destiny of Nigerian people. Having said that, there are two lists, actually. There is a list released by the federal government, and there is a list released by the leadership of People Democratic Party. So there are lists in public domain. And I want to say that these lists are not new. They have been there. They have been in public domain. Some are in the proofs of evidence that have been filed in some cases in courts. And so government was not giving us any new thing. What I think government was doing was just to release a list in response to a challenge thrown to it by the publicity secretary of People Democratic Party.
Sorry, Senior Advocate, I just want to mention, you know, this list that just came out, released by the federal government, actually did offer some new information that was not previously available. There was certain evidences given about certain officials. For example, we just found out from the list that the former Chief of Army Staff, the retired Lieutenant General Kenneth Minima, was involved with giving back to the federal government about $5 billion. We didn't know that previously, for example.
Perhaps maybe the press have not taken much interest in the proofs of evidence that have been filed in court. And I expect Nigerian press to dig into it, some proofs of evidence, some of the cases that have been filed in court. When you looked into some of these proofs of evidence that have been filed in court, including written statements that have been given to EFCC, you will discover some names which ought to come out, that are yet to come out. You will find, for instance, in some of these lists, how money was given out for spiritual purposes, for prayer purposes, a whopping sum of money. So the point I am making is that what they are doing does not put food on the table of anybody. Nigeria expects a more vigorous, a more robust criminal prosecution, a more result-oriented actions on the part of government, not to begin to say you be thief and not be thief kind of fella song, and you dabble me, attacker you kind of thing that we used to have, all in preparatory for 2019 election.
So essentially, if it doesn't culminate in a proper prosecution, it's essentially playing to the gallery.
If it doesn't,
okay.
So, and I expect the federal government, who has these copies of these pieces of information, to up its game in criminal prosecution.
Dr. Ananaba, what are your thoughts?
Well, I agree to a very large extent with my brother. Well, I want to say that going forward, I mean, taking it beyond where he stopped, that the issue of corruption is so vital in this country. It's gone so viral, it's so humongous that it is so important that it should not be trivialized. It should not become a political weapon. It should not at all. Now, it is clear in this country, and it's said by our leader, by the president, that if we don't kill corruption, corruption will kill us. Something that can kill us is not something to use to throw to one party, the other party throws to the other. Now, this list that has just been released is not just coming in new to the government, too. The list is in, as my brother said, it's been in the public glare. So I will expect that on the publishing this thing should not only come as a result of response to a challenge. It should come as a holistic list. It should be whole. It shouldn't be said to be for one party, this party publishing their own, that party publishing their own. It should come, or everybody that is being investigated or being prosecuted within the same parameters should be brought to public notice, regardless of party, tribe, and religion.
So you don't have issues necessarily with the list coming out or them using the name and shame tactic as much as you are concerned about the partisanship involved?
Yes. The slight issue I have with it, I would have preferred, if I had my way, I would have preferred the prosecuting agencies releasing these names in the course of their duty, so that it is not released as a matter of political platform, or naming any party, these parties are looters or these parties are not looters. I would have expected that ICPC or EFCC, or even the police, the relevant government agency to say, we are investigating these people, we are prosecuting these people for this. That would have obviated the need of what my friend was saying, that we would have known the meat of who and what. Now it will continue to go, if care is not taken, to politics. People will now say, oh, it's all about politics. This party is against this party is against this party. This is corruption. It's so vital, it's so important. If it must be attacked, it must be attacked holistically with every sense of patriotism and zeal, irrespective of the cross-carpeting of parties and the political applications.
Mr. Okutepa, some people have said, look, when you look very carefully at the list that was released by the federal government in particular, the one with the 23 additional names, it could be seen as self-indicting in a way, because you have situations or circumstances in which, the former CG of Customs, Inde Diko, they listed his name and the details there, and it said that, he had allegedly stolen 40 billion naira, but that they have only recovered 1 billion naira. How much of this, how much of what is being alleged is actually being effectively investigated and dealt with? Because if somebody has stolen 40 billion and you're only able to get 1 billion, is it not in some way self-indicting?
Let me answer you in another dimension. I think Nigeria as a state, with all respect, does not seem to be serious in fighting corruption. Because corruption is the most thriving business enterprises you can think of in Nigeria. It's everywhere. It does not know any region. It is not of ethnic coloration. It cut across both political parties. And speaking for myself, with the greatest respect, I do not see any difference between any of the political parties in Nigeria, because the political parties in Nigeria are populated by the Nigerians who, with respect, seem to have our DNA deeply rooted in corruption. Now, back to your question. Investigating a crime of high-tech nature like the kind we have in Nigeria is not a tea party. Government is not serious to fund investigation. Government is not releasing sufficient money. And even when money is released, I have this notion that those who are saddled with responsibility of doing thorough investigation are compromised.
Senior Advocate, just hold your thought, please. We're going to take a short break. Our viewers will be back in a moment. Please stay with us.